I know what you're thinking. What in the gosh darn is Bits and Bombs? Bits and Bombs is a podcast deep diving into what it takes to do stand-up from a different comedian every episode. Follow new open micer Peter Dahms in his journey to be an okay comic.
For one thing, I wish they taught me how to do was drive, because I can't drive in this city. At school, did you guys have, what are they called, war cries? Did you guys have those? Literally, my war cry at school was, we can't read, we can't write, doesn't really matter, because we come from Atherton and we can drive a tractor. I don't make that up, that's just my life, man, and I can't drive here, so I have to catch the ferry. Did you guys see on the news, for real, they're hiring out the city cat for functions? You know, did you see that? Oh man, who the heck, what sort of functions are they putting on a city cat? Could you picture someone's fancy 50th? Nothing screams elegance like tapping on your go-kart.
Thanks for joining me today, Georgina.
Thank you. How exciting. It's been a long time in the making. Not the making.
Yeah, just organising a day to get it done.
Here it is, the day that the Red Hot Chili Peppers are playing and Post Malone in the background. That's the day that I could do. So here we are.
Yeah. Hopefully we don't get copyright.
No, surely not. Surely not. It's featuring, this podcast is featuring Post Malone.
Yeah, that's pretty big get,
The
honestly.
listeners are gonna go through the roof just because of this.
Yeah.
I don't know. I organise it like this.
So you've been doing comedy for 6 years now?
I think I've been trying to hustle and really focus in on it in the last few years, but I started doing stand-up comedy in high school. So
in high school?
Yeah,
okay.
So my first ever gig was at our school. It was one of those performance nights where everyone goes at a variety night kind of thing, and my drama teacher was like, you should do stand-up comedy, and I just got up, and I think there was about 300 people, and I just did my first gig like it was nothing. And I actually think I was funnier back then. I'm looking back at my jokes, I'm like, man, that's actually really good. I've got some great twists, got some excellent callbacks. I was a good joke writer back then. I'm like, what happened?
Do you use any of those jokes still?
No.
Does any of that pop up in a set list every now and again?
I think it'd be a bit outdated, because they're really good jokes, but I'm talking I'm in high school and with my dad, because I was in high school with my dad. But yeah, I think I need to go back and revisit that and use some of the structures that I use, because it was really good. But yeah.
Okay. Surely you could be able to just change the context of a few.
Yeah, maybe.
And keep the punchline, maybe.
Maybe. I was stuff about my dad being scared of the Westpac bank manager and all sorts of stuff. And I'm looking back, I'm like, man, I was really smart back then. What happened? But yeah.
Yeah, okay. How would you describe your style of comedy?
Probably pretty lighthearted and a bit quirky, I would say. It's for me, very true to life, and I like to make it, when I'm on stage, I like to kind of be me, but probably a little bit more exaggerated, I think, because a lot of some comedians, they're very different on stage to what they like in real life, and it's just everyone's different styles and everything. But yeah, I think that's how I'd describe it. Yeah.
I've definitely noticed that you're someone that just stands out.
Yeah.
There's no one else that's so that's the Georgina bit that's it's just very much so that's Georgina, you're doing that kind of thing.
I think it's because my life is just my life for me is just a bit weird, and I'll just attract weird things, but I not bad weird things, but just weird quirky things, and I just kind of relay what that is on stage. So yeah, they're just a bit bizarre, but yeah.
So we're in the Brisbane scene. Do you think having a regional being from regional Queensland kind of makes you stand out as well?
I think so. I think if you go anywhere and you're from a small town, and some people, a lot of my friends that have moved from a regional town to here, they don't really associate with that identity. But I always feel, that's fair. But for me, I think it was just a really large part of growing up, and it's something that I really carrying with myself in my day-to-day life and bringing it on stage. So
Yeah.
I think I had I did a gig the other day at the Paddo, and someone came up to me after and they go, I spent a large amount of my time in far north Queensland. I really loved the far north Queensland humour. It was really really resonating with everything that you said, and I forget about that because a lot of people haven't actually been there, so I'm kind of taking them to this little crazy far north Queensland world through my comedy. Yeah
Cool.
How about you when you came here, like, and you were from up north too? How did you find it and going on stage with that too?
Because it's one of those things where like a lot of my a lot of my humor's always just been like, I don't it's just like, oh, I worked at a video game store type stuff, and like I'm a bit of a dorky nerd, but it's never been like the regional Queensland stuff has never really like made its way into my comedy. So I feel like I do very similar, like I get similar crowd, like I do about just as well or whatever, like in regional Queensland as I do like Brisbane. I had someone say to me, like when I did like a regional tour last year, and someone said to me like, oh, you do really well in regional Queensland. And my response was legitimately like, who do you think I am? Like Georgina Humphries? No. Like, because I don't like feed into that the same way, like, you know.
Oh, it's just everyone's different take and perspective that they like to kind of go with. And I've just gone with that. I don't know, just pretty hard out. Let's go. This is where I'm from. Who's from a farm? Oh, you're from a farm. Get around this chicken joke. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah,
cool. To be fair, I didn't grow up on a farm or anything. Yeah, either, so
I think that's why, because for me, it's such a large. My life is, and even on stage, I like to kind of play into that contrast because my life is such a contrast. Growing up in a town of like 200 people, literally living in this tiny little, I don't know, my voice lost. It's because I ate all those, I got paid to eat those chilies before I went.
How much did you make off eating the chilies before?
Yeah, so I just came from lunch, and then my friend knows that I really can't handle spice, and they said, if you eat that chili, I will pay you $20. And I'm like, I haven't worked in a while. Yeah, let's do this. And then I ate the chili, and then now my sinuses are going crazy, which is so perfect before recording a podcast. But anyway, that's why I lost my voice. But yeah, with the contrasts, going from living in the middle of nowhere to living literally in a big sky-rise building in the middle of one of the biggest capital cities in Brisbane, and then in Brisbane, in Australia, and then going on stage. And I like to dress up, like it's fun. I love wearing colours and being bright and sparkly. That's just who I am. And then I get on stage, I'm like, hey, you going? And people are like, oh, I wasn't expecting you to sound like that. They expect me to wear a flanny and like some gumboots instead, but yeah.
Did you move to Brisbane for comedy?
Yeah, I did. I always wanted to work in media, so I moved here. All I had was a little suitcase and I just some clothes, and I was like, I'm gonna do film production and I'm gonna do stand-up comedy at night time. And I didn't really know how to get into the comedy scene, so I did Raw. You did Raw. You did incredibly well at Raw last year.
Oh, thank you.
So I did Raw twice, and I was like, oh, that's me. Like, I don't know how to actually get in and start doing gigs, but
so to do Raw twice, that's like a year apart, isn't it?
Yeah.
So your first two gigs were like, so you did the first gig at Raw and waited another year for the competition to come around again.
Exactly. I didn't really know how to even.
There wasn't any. Okay, there wasn't anyone at like the first comp you did that said, hey, if you wanted to get like anyone else in the scene at the time?
No, not really. Okay. I think I was so fortunate. I had like a heap of people that booked a table. I remember I think I had like 2 tables of people, and I'm like, yeah, let's come and support you. And I did the gig, and back then I was pretty lucky. I did pretty well. And then I was like, oh, yeah, cool. And then I went home, and that was it. Like, I didn't really... And I think a lot of...
bucket list check.
Yeah, I hadn't like... And people are always prepping for Raw now. They're like doing the rounds around the open mic scene. And I just literally wrote a new set, and I just got up and I just said it and hoped for the best. I didn't know how to actually do it. Yeah.
So how far did you get with the first time you did Raw?
Oh, I think the first time I had a few years in between each. I think I was like the one, I was like a semi-finalist before you get to Melbourne. That one, like...
Oh, state finals?
State finals? Is it? Oh, yeah, I think I got through to the state finals. Was it? Oh, no, maybe I think it was semi-finals. I think I got semi-finals once and then I got wild-carded and then I got to the state finals.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And you did incredibly well at Raw too. How far did you get?
I fluked it. I completely... I got to the state finals last year.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So, yeah, I did... Because I was living in Mackay at the time.
Yeah.
So, like, I had to do a road trip to Townsville for there. And it was, like, the first time I've ever done a regional heat for Raw, which was pretty cool.
And how was it? How did you find the Townsville heat?
It was really intimidating because it
Really?
was, like, my 6th gig.
Oh my
and
God.
there was, like, all these people that have been doing it for a few years.
Yeah.
And they actually had a scene where Mackay didn't have a scene. Like, we had 2 open mic nights.
Yeah.
And that was it in terms of, like, ever.
Far out.
At that point in time. Like, there is a bit of a scene now starting in Mackay, which is good.
Yeah.
But going to, like, where there's a scene is so intimidating.
Yeah.
And I just remember, like, at Raw being like, oh, so what's the scene like in Townsville? And they're like, this is it. I'm like, oh, shit.
Oh, wow.
But, yeah, I got really lucky. I, like, won that. And they flew me to Brisbane for the state finals.
Wow. And you crushed it
Yeah.
there. That was huge. That was really cool. What was it like performing at the Sit Down Comedy Club for the first time?
Oh, it was really intimidating, actually. Yeah.
Because you did a gig a day before or a few days before.
Yeah, I did so my first gig in Brisbane,
Yeah.
I did like a Saturday night Paddo spot because
Wow.
Fidelli wanted me to have experience on the stage.
Do you think it helped too? Or how did you feel? Did you feel more confident when you...
I think it definitely did because the first night I was fumbling with the fucking curtain.
Yeah.
like getting
it's
back
so-
out. Yeah.
It's kind of funny, like when you watch people and they're struggling with the curtains and then you go there and then you're also like, where am I? You're like wrapped in the curtains backstage. But yeah, I'm glad.
And I'm from regional Queen. I'm from Mackay.
Yeah.
So I like up until that point was always wearing shorts.
Yeah.
I don't realize it's like a comedy no-no to like
To
wear
wear
shorts.
shorts,
I had no idea.
Oh, I think...
I didn't get in trouble for it or anything, but
Yeah.
I had other comedians be like, hey, man,
Hey,
you
what?
can't wear shorts. I'm like, no one told me this.
I think a lot of people don't wear shorts, but also if it's part of your character and your act and who you are, I'd probably just say wear shorts unless people are going to be seeing up your pants, but I don't think they're going to be doing that.
I did get heckled that night. Someone yelled out nice legs at me. So that's what I get for wearing shorts.
Wow.
I guess.
Okay, well, yeah, that's probably why everyone's like, don't show those bad boys off.
Can't handle it. Sit down.
Yeah.
So in the last 6 years, have you seen like a change in this? 6 years, is it?
Yeah,
roughly.
I've been in Brisbane for about 6 years now, and then probably really trying hard to gig for the last 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
I definitely think there's been a big change even in the time that I've been, but it could also just because I've been fortunate to get more gigs and slowly, learn more about it and about how to actually get gigs and networking with everyone. But I think actually during COVID, Queensland, from my point of view, it looked like it benefited because all of the, during lockdown, I don't know if it's not illegal, but before lockdown actually happened, all of the comedians from down south, a lot of like the really seasoned ones, they came up to Queensland because they knew it was going to be all locked up, or like the pubs and everything down south.
Yeah.
So I feel like at one point we had all these comedians from down south that were doing open mic nights, and we were kind of rubbing shoulders with people that were at kind of like a higher level than us, so we could benefit and we could watch them, and the gigs would really crush because of that. So I think since then it's been kind of flourishing a little bit more that I've noticed, and it's kind of at a nice trajectory, I think.
Yeah. Do you think with that, like with it flourishing, is that it, like there's more opportunities to get up on stage?
Yeah, I reckon. I think there's a few more open mic nights. Because we're recording this at the start of the year, I think that they're still popping up more and more, and things are kind of getting out of that sleepy period.
Yeah,
but normally,
And you're seeing a lot of people still like being like, oh, this is my first gig of the, like we're only at the end of January, so a lot of people like are still like easing back into the comedy stuff.
Yeah, they had a little hiatus over Christmas and ate too much plum pudding, and now they're finally awake again. Yeah. But
is there any, so back to your first gig?
Yeah.
Do you remember like do you remember any of those jokes? Like what your first joke you've ever done in terms of stand-up?
Probably, I had this joke. It's not the best joke ever, but I remember 2 jokes from I think I did a 5 to 7 minute set And I did this joke about Halloween. I had a whole like set about Halloween, and I would be like, why is Halloween so Americanized? Why can't we make it more Australian? Why can't we? I can't remember exactly, but I said something like, why is it called a I just ruined my joke. Why is it called a jack-o'-lantern? Why can't it be called a robo-lantern or a Dave-o'-lantern? And I'm writing these jokes, so I'm just a teenager, and I'm like, oh man, that's killer. But yeah.
Robert Land's actually very funny though.
Yeah. And then I had some more. I really wish I should have printed it. Actually, I've got it somewhere. Like my first ever 5-minute set, my first type 5 that I did. Yeah, and then I had some like shorter form jokes and some longer form jokes. Yeah. Sorry.
All good. So you have so how do you go about like the writing process?
Yeah.
Like how do you write jokes?
Oh, I need to write more jokes as a start, but I kind of find it the best for me. I know it's so different for everyone else, but I kind of just have a few points. And I'll just go to an open mic or just to show that you're allowed to test new material. And just kind of just spit out some stories or some yarns about that, and obviously record it and see what sticks. And then I'll be like, oh, that actually worked. And I'll kind of elaborate off there, and I'll sit down then and start writing, as opposed to writing and then, I think I do it in reverse a little bit. How about you?
I think like my writing is like I kind of have a punchline or some type of like kind of idea, and then I like just stew on it, just think about it, and then just like slowly over time. And then I think I figured out the joke before I've even written it down, that I'll write it down. Yeah. But like I need to like have it to a point where I'm like really confident in it before I even like bring it to stage. Yeah. And that's why I have so many jokes that like I've written but never performed, because I'm like, nah, it's dog shit.
No, I know. But then like if you have them in your little storage, not actual storage thing, but you put it in an archive, and then you'll be able to use them at a later date, or have a little look at them and rework it all.
Yeah, and that's I guess like the way you do it like is a good way to like, if it gets a laugh, you're like, okay, there's something that has like.
But it's a risk. Like, comedy is such a risk, because you're like, is this gonna work? Is it not? And I think that's what's exciting about it too.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And for me, I think I like was doing the same material for like when I first moved here for like 6 months, and I just got so bored of it. Yeah,
it gets stale, and you kind of go into if I would do that too, I'd kind of go into a robot mode, and I'd be saying this, and I'm like, oh, doesn't feel natural.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. What joke do you have any jokes where you're just like, that's a great joke, but like no one quite got it, or like?
That's a good one. Oh, I had, okay, I'm alive now. A joke that I really liked that the audience didn't get, I think. I have a joke about, and it's mainly because I think people don't get the reference. I still do it. Even to this day, I do a joke about Inner Health Plus, which is like the little, Inner Health Plus, like the
yeah. I've seen that joke do really well.
Yeah, but a lot of times I do it, and people are like, "What is that?" So
really?
Think,
I feel like that's one of those jokes that everyone kind. I don't know, but when I've seen it, it does really well.
What about you?
There was like one joke, I made like when I first kind of started. It was just like a Limp Bizkit joke. Yeah. It fucking bombed really bad, but I got down and I was like, no, that was for me. Yeah. I thought that was funny.
Yeah. It's funny seeing people do some jokes in some places, and it does amazing, and then you see them do it in another place and it gets absolutely no response. Like it's just really.
And that's the brutal thing about comedy too. Like you can go to one room and have the same set and do really well. Yeah. And then also bomb the worst you've ever bombed with the same set.
Even in the same night. Like I've done that before. Like I've gone to the first gig, it's been killer, and then the second gig, it's just been like pretty flat. I'm like, oh, sorry. Like, yeah. Is
there anything that you take into account that trying to like counteract that potentially happening? Like, do you like? I know some people kind of like. I've had people like ask me like, how many old people are in the crowd? Like, when I was up, kind of thing. Like, do you try and engage the crowd before you perform?
I think it's hard because sometimes I've been to gigs and I look at those people, like the people, and I'm like, oh, they're like an older crowd. They look a bit more conservative. And then there's comedians up there there's comedians up there and they're doing like jokes that are a bit more risque.
Yeah.
And they're crushing. Like, the older
Yeah.
people loving it, and then you think, oh, they look like they're gonna not be as receptive to that sort of material. So I guess you just have to gauge and kind of counteract. And what I'm trying to do is just expand the material that I. Why? Oh my God. A bit of a stockpile of material that I can alternate, because if the crowd doesn't like this direction, then I can kind of switch up and pivot this way. But I think that will just go continue as we keep gigging and we keep writing and we keep getting that kind of little archive of stuff to work on.
Is that? Do you need like?
What are we talking about?
We were talking about like gauging crowds.
Oh yeah, that's kind of how I do it. Like I'm just, I don't know, I'm kind of working on that. How about you?
Oh, I have no idea on how to gauge crowds. I just
Yeah.
do my set, and if they don't like it, they don't like it.
Is there a certain demographic that you find your jokes normally land better with?
Not really. It's so funny. Like even like back to the old people thing.
Yeah.
I have a joke about beating up old people.
Yeah.
And there's been times when, oh, this isn't gonna, and they're the ones that will like. Most of the time that people have come up and like, oh, I really like that joke. They're old people.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like I've done well to like different types of crowds. Like I've done a gig where it's just mostly old people. Like at like a fancy cafe, I'm like, fuck, I am not gonna do well, and I did really well. I'm like, what? And then I've done those same kind of crowds like after that, and then done shit. So I don't know. Like it's really hard to gauge.
It's so hard. Yeah, I think it's always kind of a risk, and you're just kind of assessing what we have to work with. Not work with, but yeah, who we've got to entertain.
Yeah. So you've done a few. You did a few tours last year, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I was trying to hustle. I did one to like right into the outback of Queensland, which was really fun. So I did little pubs that had. The towns only had like 60 people, but there'd be like 200, not maybe 200, like 100 people show up to the gig. And I'm like, where are these people coming from? Which was really cool. And then I did one up the coast with some other comedians that I know you went on one very similar.
Yeah, I did like
last year.
Yeah, last year as well. A few months before you did yours, like with Anna Brennan and stuff too. Like from Brisbane up to like Airlie Beach.
Where was your favourite gig in the whole tour? Because there's a fair few. Hey, nearly 10 or so.
Yeah. Mackay for sure. Hometown.
Yeah, your
gig.
hometown.
Like,
Did you have a lot of people that you knew that came to rally and support you? Or
yeah, definitely. Yeah. Had a bit of a crowd there.
Yeah,
so
mad. Oh, it's a cool little venue. Hey, that like.
Yeah, old strip club.
Yeah, it's so fun. I was like, man, I like this. Like, it's really, and it was lovely when I did it. We did it twice.
Yeah.
The show, and I really enjoyed the crowds. They were really lovely sort of people, and I'm like, oh yeah.
Because you did, and like your first tour was only like a few weeks before that one, didn't it? Like you did like 2 back to back, basically.
It was interesting. What was most interesting for me is because I did the tour right in the middle of not nowhere, somewhere. It's probably one of the best places in Australia. But I did the really inland tour, and then a few days later we did the one up the coast. So it was really interesting to see the difference between the sort of people there. You've got like the real hard yakka people in the middle of Australia, and then you go to the coast and everyone's a bit more chill and cruisy, and then you go to different parts of real Queensland that are more coastal, and it's pretty different. Sorry.
All good.
Next question now.
So with your the tour before the coastal one, you organised that yourself, didn't you? It was like with you and your dad?
Yeah, so I did it with Dad because Dad's a muso, and I kind of did the tour firstly so I give people in the outback a bit of chance to see stand-up comedy, and just also for myself because I love going to those places. I love visiting them. I love spinning a yarn, and I love hearing their yarns too. So fully organised that myself, which was fun to be able to piece it together and contact the venues and see how it all would work. So that was really fun. And then dealing with those venues, because they're in the middle of, it is really far out. They're like, oh, really, you're coming out here? And they were so excited too. And I'm like, oh, it's just me. Like, they're like, oh, wow. And then in one of the venues that was the furthest point that I was going to perform at, they were so excited. They drew me on a blackboard, and I'm like, oh, that's so sweet. Like, they were like, oh, look, we've got a big comedian coming, and I'm like, oh, this is just me, yeah.
Regional crowds are great too, because they just they don't get, especially in terms of comedy, they don't really get much. So they always just show up in big crowds.
Yeah.
They always come out for it.
They're very warm, and I think they're very appreciative too that people are even willing to go out there and entertain them.
Yeah, definitely. You go home whereabouts are you from?
I'm from a little town called Millamilla, so it's about an hour and a half, or if Mum's driving, 2 hours from Cairns. I get to go home. Oh, it looks like I'm home more than I am, but I get to go home every couple of months if I'm able to. It's a bit hard to get away with work and gigs and everything, but I love going back home.
Yeah, don't they have a nickname for you as well? Yeah,
they call me the Thriller from Millamilla. Yeah. So it's pretty funny, to be honest.
And you do a show is it a full solo show every year that you do that?
Yeah, so I've been
how long
doing
have you been doing that for?
Yeah, so I do the solo show. I've been doing it now for nearly 4 years, or nearly 4 or 5 years. So the first show I did at this big tea house that we have back in Millamilla, and it was actually, before it was made into a tea house, it was my granddad's family home. So that was really special. We had the whole town showed up. There was probably 200 people. They said it was the busiest night that they've ever had. And they were, the crowd was so lovely. And it's why I love it so much is they're so supportive. They're the village who raised me, and now they're all behind me. So that's why I love it so much. I've been doing that every year around Christmas time for the past nearly 4 years. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. And last year you did in Brisbane, you did your first solo show.
Yeah.
That sold out twice.
Yeah, lucky.
How does that, was that a different show to what you usually take home?
Oh, there's definitely pieces of it, but there's the shows that I do back home, I have a lot of local humour, so I can't really do that here in Brisbane. I just kind of adapt depending on the crowd.
So how does preparing a show, what's the process of that, especially when you get a lot of 5-minute spots?
Yeah.
Are you just trying to see how much should 5 minutes at a time you can get into a good kind of working?
Oh, do you mean preparing the hour show?
Yeah, preparing an hour show. Yeah, how do you make sure that all the jokes are solid jokes? I guess.
Yeah. Oh, good question. I kind of guess I'm only at the very start of learning that myself, but I like to kind of see all my material, and one of my favorite things actually to do is to kind of see where everything fits best, and if I can have any callbacks and the jokes that are more punchy, if they are better at the start, and then I can go into a bit more of a long form story. And I like doing that. It is a bit hard when we're in Brisbane and we're only doing 5 to 10 minute spots, because it's what is this hour going to feel like? How am I going to be able to make sure it has a nice flow? I guess until you really do it, it's hard to make sure it all fits nicely. But that's what I've just been learning so far, and I just have a yarn and allow a bit of time that I can engage with the audience if I want to, or if it goes a little over, or not over. If I go a little over with a story, I can cut it and make sure it's a nice consumable time for the audience, I guess.
Yeah, cool. And do you have any plans for that same show this year at all?
Yeah, so I'm doing the Melbourne Comedy Festival with the same show, but I think I'll revamp it a little bit. It'll be, the essence of it will be the same, but I'm still I'm still tweaking it. The show's going to be in about 2 months' time. So it's exciting, but I'm just going to keep doing different iterations. Is that even the word? I'm going to keep doing that until it gets, I feel like I'm making a cake or something. I'm just cutting the dough. I'm just stirring the dough, kneading the dough, whatever, until it's a nice little product. So yeah.
And I guess the more times in a row that you get to like do that hour show, like
100%, you'll hone it in.
Kind of be like, okay, next night let's do this different.
Yeah.
Like, did you find there was many changes between there was a little bit of a gap, like maybe a month between your first and second show?
I think there was about 2 weeks because I did the first one in late September and the other one in early October. So I did chop and change, and I changed the ending, and I feel like the first one was really special because it was my first ever Brisbane show, and it was I had so much fun. But the second one, I did feel a little bit more comfortable because I had a bit more of an idea of what I'm doing and where the show was going.
Mm-hmm.
How about you? Are you going to do your own show sometime?
Oh, not anytime. I think I might try and attempt like a split show this year, just like, 15, 20 minutes with like another comedian or two, but not for a while. I think I'm going to ease into the hour show stuff. So
100%. I definitely think, and I don't have enough material to be doing an hour show, but one of the big reasons is I do it is for myself. I just want to kind of push myself into the deep end and learn. I feel like besides actually writing the hour show, there's so much that goes into marketing it and learning how to actually do all the other stuff that's the package around the show. So I guess that's why, and I really enjoy it, that's why I'm kind of just chucked myself in just in this way of learning. But I can totally see that I'd probably need years and years until I actually have a proper solid hour. But I'm just, that's my train of thought. I don't know if it's very good, and other more experienced comedians probably like, mate, just wait 50 years and then you'll be good, which is probably true, but I just have my own way of learning, I guess.
So what was the jump between doing a lot of like 5-10 minute spots places, like what was the gap between when you did like your first hour show? Like, would it have been like, oh, I've done 15 minutes, now I'm doing like 50 to an hour? Oh,
I actually think that I had done, it would have been about 4 years ago when I did my first hour show. I think it wasn't an hour. I think I did about 40 minutes, and I was doing 5-minute spots at the Sit Down Comedy Club, or like I was only doing 5 minutes, and then I asked the venue back in Millermill, I said, oh, can I do a show? And they're like, yeah, sure thing, we'd love you to do a show. And I thought, oh yeah, cool, maybe I'll do like 20 minutes in the side near the pizza oven. And then they posted on their Facebook, and everyone's like, oh wow, this is incredible. And it kind of just swung out of proportion. They were like, we're fully booked, there's 100 and something people coming. And I'm like, oh, I can't just stand on the side on a crate and say 20 minutes of jokes. Like, people are here for a big show. Yeah. And I'm like, well, I better get working on it. And I just popped it. Like, I just made this whole show. I had mum and dad be the support acts. Yeah. Dad did music, mum did comedy. And I was like, yeah, okay, cool. So they probably did nearly 10 minutes. Oh, they probably did about 20 minutes. And then I did 40, and it was my little hour show, my little family affair with everyone. Cool. But yeah, I think, I don't know if I meant to do an hour show, but it just happened. And then from there, I just continued.
Did you find being up on stage like, Jesus, like kind of exhausted from it? Or like, because I remember when I went from, like for me personally, I went from like 5 to 10 minutes, and it just made like all the difference. I was like, my mouth's going dry. Like, really? I was like stressing out, and it's only like 5 minutes more. Yeah. So like, I can't even imagine like what, I guess this is for me though. Like, I can't imagine like what jumping to an hour would be like.
Yeah, I think I've done a few hour shows, but I haven't done a heap consistently. But for me, I actually like it because I feel I've got more breathing room. For the 5 minutes, I feel like it's a bit pressurized because I'm like, oh, I need to make sure everything is under this certain time. Especially when I've got 10 minutes, I'm like, okay, this is a nice amount of time to be like on stage for. But yeah, I think with the hour, especially in some of the places I went, like really rural, it's hard because you're trying to make sure that the whole thing is like, you're not losing people's interest throughout the show, and then it's like not dying down. So I think at certain times I've felt like, oh, this is pretty nerve-wracking going from normally just doing 5 to 10 minutes to jump into this longer period of time. But yeah.
Yeah, cool. And you said that your mum does stand up. Was that something that happened? Like, did she do it before you, or did she start to support you?
Oh, she she actually did Fiona McGarry's stand-up course.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, sweet.
And she didn't do it because she wants to be a stand-up comedian. She just wanted to do it because she wanted to do it. I don't know. She just did it because she just thought it was something that she'd enjoy.
Yep.
She used to do a lot of public speaking when I grew up. So she was part of this thing called Toastmasters. And I remember some of my earliest memories were her practicing for the humorous speech competition for this big thing called Toastmasters, and she had this humorous speech about potatoes and a potato grenade, and I just remember hearing her talking about that in the kitchen all the time, and I was like, oh, my mom's kind of funny, that's cool. And then I conned her into opening for me, even though I don't know if she really wanted to, but she enjoys it, and people think she's a rock star. I think she's a rock star too, so I like to have her there if she's then. Also, it makes my material more funny because it's about mum, and they've seen my mum, so they know who I'm talking about. And I think mum tries to be like, oh, that's not that funny when it's about her, but I think she secretly loves it too.
Yeah. I went to your first show and I just love how you kept picking on both your parents that were there. That was so good.
Yeah, well, I didn't actually plan that because mum sat, I think that was the first show, mum sat on one side of the room and dad sat on the other side. So we had these like two polar opposites, and I'd be like, oh yeah, hey dad, what about this? Or hey mum, what about that? And it was funny that they were just like on the other side.
And your dad was actually like kind of like next to the stage on the bar, so you could easily just be like, hey dad.
Yeah, which was funny. I didn't plan that, but that's how it all unfolded.
Yeah, cool. So what's the worst bomb you've ever had?
Oh, I was thinking this up until when was it? Up until last December, I hadn't really had a horrible bomb.
Oh, you just been killing it the
no,
whole time? No, I'm kidding.
No, like I've had gigs where I've done well, but I don't think I've had any like gigs that were like, oh man, that was the worst thing I've ever done. Or maybe like my 2 gigs, I didn't actually do as bad as I thought, but it was my first ever Pado 5, and I was opening on a Saturday night, I think it was, and I was called to do. I was so excited, and Dad and I were supposed to be leaving to do a road trip for 2 weeks down to New South Wales, and I said, Dad, I've got a gig, like can we please postpone? He's like, no worries, we'll leave a few days later. So I did this gig, and I got off stage, and I thought I had done so horrible. Like it was, I think it was like, it would have been fine. It wouldn't have been my best work by any means, my first ever Pado 5, but I just thought I did so bad. I just remember I was in the car the next day with my dad. I was like looking out the window, like I'm never going to be booked again. Like Adele's playing. I was like, this is shocking. And then I had to be not driven around, and then we just traveled around for 2 weeks, and I just couldn't think of anything except for how bad I thought I had done with that gig. Okay. But I don't think it was that bad. But the actual worst bomb that I've had was in Rockhampton, I would say. Yeah. I did so bad. I don't know why. The crowd was like, there was probably like 6 people in the crowd, only a really small little crowd in this dark little room. And I was headlining. So there's obviously an expectation for the headliner to be the headliner to be deserving of being in the headliner spot, I think, is probably the best way to say it. And I get up on stage and I'm like, oh, I'm from a dairy farm. This is the beef capital. That's so cool. Like, are we going to bond down our bovine interests? No, not like that. Yeah. But I just was like, oh, yeah. And they just were not having a bar of me. And I'm like, oh, so what about chickens? And they were just like, it was like crickets. And I just was like, I don't know. Normally I am able to kind of weasel my way out or land a joke out of something, even if I'm not crushing it. And I just felt like I was just doing so bad. There was a curtain behind us, behind the stage, and I literally, while I was on stage, I was like, I tried to hide behind the curtain while I was on stage, because I was like, this is really not going well. And then I got off stage, and there was the 3 other comedians, and I just put my glasses on, and I was like, I will not be taking questions at this time. Like I did so bad, yeah. And then a few nights later, we went to the Sunshine Coast, and people were like lining up for photos with me, and like they were like, as if I was a celebrity. I'm like, did you see me 3 nights ago? Because I'm getting whiplash right now.
Some bombs can be like just so funny though. And you come out of it just like at least you have like a good story from it.
100%.
Yeah.
How about you?
Oh, I actually bombed really bad on the regional tour.
Yeah.
You did Footlights Theatre, didn't you?
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Oh, so it was we did a matinee.
Yeah.
To 10 people in the afternoon at like it's like Footlights is like a little theatre restaurant, and I just ate shit like I just didn't want any and I did really well 2 nights before.
Yeah.
And then just like completely bombed on the 3rd night of the tour, and I got off stage just laughing. I was like, that was fucking ridiculous what I did up there. And like I could also like feel myself like sometimes you feed off the energy the crowd gives,
of course,
especially like early on, like in comedy. Like I'm trying to like get comfortable with the awkwardness now of like small crowds or like just people not laughing at your stuff and trying not to let it get to me kind of thing.
Yeah.
But at that point it was like, making me a little bit more nervous, and I started like forgetting my lines and all that type of stuff too. But
of course. Oh my goodness.
yeah.
That sucks. But the venue itself was really cool though.
Yeah, it's a cool venue for sure.
Did you see the dogs?
Yeah, I saw the dogs.
They have like the most amazing fluffy dogs, and Anna loves the dogs. Hey,
yeah, she loves the dogs for sure.
That's so funny that our bombs were like on the same tour. But
yeah, when you said that, I was like, oh, I also have a really
but it was probably like some of my best gigs were on that tour too.
Yeah.
So it's like the highs and lows. What do you think was your best gig on the tour and your favorite location that you visited? But after Mackay.
After Mackay.
Yeah.
I reckon like actually Yeppoon the night before was really good. We did a different spot in Yeppoon. We were like part of like some festival, like a cultural festival or something.
Wow.
And that was really cool.
Yeah.
So it's just funny, like same place.
Yeah.
2 different nights.
Oh yeah.
Completely different results.
Oh yeah. No, I think maybe, and also the matinee would have made it more difficult as well. We had a later show, so I just feel like the crowd was there, like it was pumping.
Yeah,
and I was emceeing, so I was like, let's get it. It was good fun.
Yeah, nice. That being said though, like everyone else did well on that same night. It was just me that was
it's probably just like the different demographics and everything, and the different jokes translate better to some crowds and everything. Yeah,
it's one of those things too, like it's really hard because I never want to like blame the crowd and be like, oh, they're the reason I didn't do well. So like sometimes it's just like trying to, okay, maybe I could do this better next time as well. But
100%.
It's also that same thing where, different demographics just find different things funny.
Yeah.
So,
that's sick.
Yeah, actually, something I do want to bring up is, so this is not comedy related, but a few months ago, I was in the city.
Yeah.
And I got pulled up for a conversation with a guy like trying to save my soul, talking about the Bible and stuff. And just out of nowhere, someone comes up, "What's up, gangster?" in a KFC costume.
Yeah, why not?
And it was you. You saved me from, being preached at.
You saved me because I really wanted to. So we dressed up for our Halloween party, and then I got called in because I had to work the next day really early and for breakfast radio, I think like 3 a.m. So I was like, I really wanted a photo near KFC with my KFC costume, because previous year I dressed up as like a big Filet fish girl, and I got a photo in front of McDonald's. And then I was like, I was like gonna look for something random, and then I see you, and I'm like, wow, he's my savior. So maybe while that guy was trying to save you, you were saving me. Thank you.
You're just like, can you take a photo? I'm like, sure. And I was like, sorry, I gotta go.
Yeah. And
like the KFC like staff loved it.
Yeah, well,
they were so into it.
Because we were taking a photo outside, and they're like, do you want to come into KFC?
Yeah, you're getting a photo just in front of KFC.
And then all the staff came out.
They're like, come in.
There's like 10 staff members at KFC and like the manager out there like taking a photo. I'm like, this is sick. I love that. And then it was so funny because it was very I think it was like there was like a big weather incident or something that was pending, and that's why I got called in extra early to the radio, and I had to get all these mayors of different regions in Brisbane to be able to comment on the weather situation. And I'm literally dressed in a KFC costume. It's like 9 o'clock at night, not too late. And one of the producers is calling me like, oh, can you organise an interview with this man? And I'm on the side of the road dressed in the KFC uniform, just like trying to get these official people to jump on radio the next morning, and people are yelling at me like, KFC, go. And then the man would be like, what's that? I'm like, oh, nothing, sorry. Like, it's just crazy out here. But yeah, thank you so much for saving me.
Yeah, no. And it was so funny too that like there was, so after you got the photos in the KFC, there was like a KFC worker that got caught up in that conversation with that same guy that was trying to save her soul and all that stuff. And we were just like, oh shit, do we have to do something? Like, do we have to save her? Kind of thing. Yeah. And then I just remember both of us being like, hey, trying to be, and then she's just like looking at us like, what the fuck?
It's fine. Yeah.
It's fine. We just like felt like the biggest dickheads.
Yeah, well, we're like, do you need saving? No, not like that, but like not like the,
yeah.
Everyone's like, we're here to save you.
And I just love the fact you're all like dressed up.
Oh, yeah.
Like a mascot for the place she works at.
I went to the KFC and I got all these bags and stuff, and I literally have like popcorn chicken buckets strapped to my head in the middle of Queen Street Mall like it's nothing.
Yeah. How do you just like come up with those type of ideas?
Oh, honestly, I make it within 5-10 minutes. I just go to the place and I'm like, hey, this is a bit of a weird request. Yeah. Can I buy like 15, 20 fillet fish boxes off you? And they're like, what? I'm like, I'm just making a costume. They're like, oh, okay. And then they either one of them said to me, I think it was, I can't remember where it was. I think it was in McDonald's. They were like, I can't sell these to you, but if you buy a small fries, I can give you like 10. And I'm like, okay. So I had to buy a small fries, and then they gave me the boxes. Like, I don't know. I was like, I don't know how this is working, but whatever. And so I had some literal fries with that. And then
nice.
I just go home and I just go rogue with the super glue. And then I'm done. Like, it's really, I don't really have much thought into it. I just stick things and hope for the best.
Nice. I guess like with starting to wrap up, do you have any big plans for this year in terms of like comedy and stuff?
Yeah, good question. That's what I'm working out now. I've got my little whiteboard at home and I'm like, question mark, what does this year hold? I really want to go. Last year, it was my first time performing in Melbourne and Sydney, so I really wanted to perform interstate. That was my big thing last year. This year, I've never been, and I'm not doing a show there, but I've never been to Adelaide, so I'd love to see if I can go and check out the Adelaide Comedy Festival. Not performing, but just to suss out what it's like. I really want to go to Perth and Canberra. Like, I think I just want to tick off some places that I've not seen comedy at and hopefully perform there if I can. But yeah, my big plan I'm thinking is, I did the mini rural tour last year. I think I want to do a much bigger one this year and travel to more rural places and continue a documentary about that and hopefully raise money for some sort of rural charity. I just got to get a clear vision and work towards it. I'm not 100% sure now. I've got a rough idea, but I'm going to hustle, and then hopefully I can look back at them and be like, that was pretty cool. How about you? What are your big plans?
Just before we move on, do you... So you just mentioned a documentary. Yeah. So you're making a documentary?
I'm making a documentary. It's taking me a little while because we filmed so much. We were gone for about a week. So it's the story about how Dad and I travelled inland together. And I've got some beautiful shots that I'm really excited about of Dad singing with the locals. And there's like these young guys that are fly in, fly out workers. And they're telling Dad, oh, can you play Smoke on the Water? And they're giving him song requests. And they're all outside the pub just having so much fun and like dancing, and Dad's just chatting to all the locals after my show that I did. And then I've got beautiful shots of the Australian outback, the pub, one of the pubs I performed at Croydon. I had my stage there, and then I look out the window when we're setting up, and there's literally just kangaroos like a few meters away, just like hopping around. I'm like, mate, doesn't get more Australian than this. And then there's another place we went, beautiful two-story pub. There was like only 6 people that were there when I got there, and they were just like, hey, going, mate? And everyone rocked up at night time. But yeah, beautiful places, big Mack trucks parked out the front. Before the gig, I was literally in a Mack truck about 10 minutes before I get on stage. So I filmed all of this, and then going to the Gulf of Carpentaria. So yeah, I'm working on all of that. It's just kind of to hopefully I can make a bigger one. But yeah, I'm just piecing it all together. It's just the start.
Yep. So you're not too sure like on when you're aiming to have that. Is that just like a YouTube documentary that you're aiming
I'm
for?
working out where I'm going to release it because hopefully it can become something bigger. It's just like a little maybe teaser to what I can do. But yeah, work out where I'm going to put it. Definitely would like to have it done in the next few months and have a little teaser trailer for it out soon.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, I'm working on it. And I'm just thinking exactly what I'm going to do with it. Yeah.
Yeah, sweet.
How about you? What are your big plans for the year?
Just very similar to like what you said. Like, I haven't like done any interstate stuff. So this year I want to just go to like Sydney. Yeah. Sydney's I think the first priority for me, maybe Melbourne. Yeah. But I think it'd just be good to get an idea of like just a broader scope of like the comedy scene, like in Australia. Gives a different
perspective. I 100% think. Yeah.
Yeah. So you found that like going to other like open mics and things like that in Sydney?
Especially in Sydney. I loved Melbourne, but I went during the comedy festival and I loved that. It was amazing. But I didn't really go during the comedy festival in Sydney. So I kind of got more of an idea of what it's normally like there with the regular scene. So yeah, it really put things into perspective. And then also going overseas eventually, I think will even broaden our minds even more and seeing the big fish there. So yeah.
Do you have overseas plans?
Oh, I'd love to. I just got to hustle and make enough money to be able to go overseas. But yeah, interstate and then eventually international to even just see how it is over there. I definitely think. How about you?
Oh, international, not anytime soon. Yeah. No. But what country? What would be the first country you go to?
I'd be pretty keen to go to the UK and then obviously America and see what it's all like over there. Feel like it just seems like a movie, to be honest. Yeah. So yeah, I gotta tackle that and suss that out one day.
Yeah, sweet. Well, I think that's all my questions. Really.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming and having a yarn with me.
Thanks so much. Yeah, us North Queenslanders have to have a yarn, have to stick together, especially out here in the big smoke, Yeah,
moving to the big city to pursue comedy.
Yeah, look at us now. Yeah. Over near Post Malone,
in front of a camera in my old Queenslander, we've made it.
Doesn't get much more Australian than this. I can't even speak. Doesn't get much more Australian than this.
Yeah, exactly. But thanks for coming on. I just like the idea of this podcast, like this very first episode, but the idea is to, I just want to I've had so many conversations with comedians wanting to learn, I'm early in my I'm a newbie to comedy, so I just want to learn as much as possible. Yeah. So already having these conversations, so I'm like, might as well just record it.
Yeah, so. I feel like it'll be interesting when, obviously, I think it'll be interesting for everyone else to listen to, but later on, you can look back at this in a few years' time and be like, oh, wow, I was so naive back then, or I've learnt this. So actually, that was pretty cool that I picked that up at that stage too. So it's like a little documentary in itself. So that's really exciting, and thanks so much for having me on.
No worries. Thanks for coming.
I don't know, I got so formal then. Cheers, signing off. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye.